This is Algebra 2, test number 8, part 2. We're picking up with number 10, study guide. It says graph the equation 2x plus 2y equals 20 by finding the intercepts. Remember, in order to find the intercepts, you plug in 0 for the opposite letter or the opposite variable. So if you're looking for the x-intercept, you plug in 0 in place of y. So 2x plus 2 times now 0 equals 20. When you simplify this, you have 2x. Anything times 0 is plus 0, so that cancels it out, equals 20. When you divide by 2 on both sides, the x-intercept is 10. In order to find the y-intercept, you plug in 0 in place of the x. So 2 times 0 plus 2y equals 20. Again, anything times 0 is 0. 2y equals 20. Divide by 2 on both sides. Y is 10. So both the x-intercept and the y-intercept are 10. It says to graph the equation where your x-intercept and your y-intercept is 10. So where x is 1, 2, skip a few 10, and 1, 2, skip a few 10 for your y value. So your x-intercept is 10, and your y-intercept is 10. So when you graph that equation crossing through both of those points, it's going to look just like that. Number 11 says graph negative x minus 5y equals negative 10. Notice it doesn't tell you how to graph it. So if you prefer to move it into y equals mx plus b form, it might be in your best interest. Or you can say, well, I'll graph it using the intercepts just like we just did in number 10. So do it a little quicker. If we're looking for the x-intercept, we're going to plug in 0 for y. So what that leaves you with is negative x. This part cancels out, equals negative 10. Divide by negative 1 to get x by itself. The x-intercept, just like on the last problem, coincidentally, is 10. The y-intercept is when you plug in 0 in place of x. So what that does is it cancels that part out. So it leaves you with negative 5y equals negative 10. When you divide by negative 5 on both sides, negative divided by a negative is going to be a positive 2. So you can graph that equation where y's value is 1, 2, and x's value is 1, 2. Remember, we're skipping a few 10. So your y-intercept is at 2, and your x-intercept is at 10. And you could graph that equation just like we did. Try to draw yourself a straight line through both of those points, straight as you can, looking just like that. Number 12 says find the slope of the line through the pair of points. Remember, it's x comma y, x comma y. You can use the formula m equals y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. Or you could just remember it's the change of y over the change of x. If you use the formula, you'd say this is sub 1 and this is sub 2. So you do 0 minus a negative 1/2 would mean 0 plus 1/2. So the y value would be 1/2. That's the change over the x value would be 0 minus a negative 2/3. Again, minus a negative means plus a positive 2/3. So you have 1/2 over 2/3. Another way you can write that is 1/2 divided by 2/3, which we know that means to take 1/2, take division and call it multiplication, and multiply by the reciprocal, 3 over 2. So you can cross cancel 3 and 3, multiply straight across. 1 times 1 is 1, and 1 times 2 is 2. So your slope of that first line is 1/2. The next line's a little easier because you don't fool with fractions. You do it the same way, though. Negative 11 minus a negative 8 means plus 8. So negative 11 plus 8 is going to be negative 3 over negative 9 minus 9, negative minus a positive. We're just going to combine them and get negative 18. A negative divided by negative is a positive, and the number 3 goes into both of these. It goes into itself once and into 8 6 times. So the slope of number 13 is 1 over 6. 14 says simplify by combining like terms. Negative 8c and positive 7c. Negative 8 plus 7 is negative 1c. And positive 3d and positive 5d. 3 plus 5 is going to be plus 8d. You have a negative 1 outside of this parenthesis, so distribute it. Negative 1 times 3y is negative 3y. Negative 1 times 3 is minus 3, minus 6y. Again, combine your like terms. Negative 3y and negative 6y is negative 9y. Bring down the rest of it, minus 3. 16 says solve the equation. Notice you have a y on both sides. Bring your smaller y, 1y, over to your larger y to the left. So subtract 1y, subtract it on the right as well. 4y minus 1y is 3y. It's positive, so you have 8 plus that on the right-hand side of the equation still. This part's going. Don't forget that there's a negative 9 right there. You brought your y's to the right, so bring your positive 8 to the left. It's positive, so subtract 8. If you subtract it there, subtract it here. Negative 9 minus 8 is negative 17 equals, that part cancels, 3y. Get rid of 3 times something by dividing by 3. If you do it to the right, do it to the left. Y equals negative 17 over 3. Distribute negative 5 times y is negative 5y. Negative 5 times negative 5 is positive 25. So negative 6y plus 4 equals negative 5y plus 25. Negative 6y is smaller. Bring it over by adding 6y. If you add it to the left, add it to the right. Negative 5y plus 6y is 1y, positive. Plus 25 equals, you still, that part cancels out, you still have 4 there. Undo plus 25 by subtracting it on both sides. 4 minus 25 is negative 21 equals y. 18, you have to combine 6 times x, or distribute it, 6x. 6 times negative 0.8 is going to be negative 4.8. Negative 0.2 times 5x is negative 1.0x, or negative 1x. And negative 0.2 times negative 4 is going to be positive 0.8. Combine your like terms. 6x and negative 1x is 5x. Negative 4.8 and positive 0.8 is going to be negative 4. Bring the rest down, equals 5. Now it's a lot simpler of an equation. Get rid of your minus 4 by adding it to both sides. 5 plus 4 is 9. And then you have 5x equals 9. Get rid of that by dividing by 5 on both sides. X equals 9 over 5. Undo minus 1 by adding it on both sides. Negative 2 plus 1 is negative 1 equals x over 8. Undo x divided by 8 by multiplying both sides by 8. 8 times negative 1 is negative 8. That'll cancel x. 20 says 6 plus 8n equals 54. Undo plus 6 by subtracting it. If you subtract it on the left, subtract it on the right. 8n equals 48. Undo 8 times something by dividing by 8 on both sides. N equals 6. Distribute 6 times y and 6 times 4. Undo plus 24 by subtracting it. Six y equals 66. Undo 6 times something by dividing. 66 divided by 6 is 11. 22, simplify this one. Do its inside parentheses first. 4 squared is 4 times 4, which is 16. Negative 5 plus 16 times 2 minus 4 is going to be negative 2 cubed. So do its inside parentheses first again. Negative 5 plus 16 is 11. Times negative 2 cubed means negative 2 times negative 2, which is positive 4. Times negative 2 is going to be times negative 8. So 11 times negative 8 is negative 88. Make a mapping diagram for the relation. Remember, it's x are your inputs, all of your x values. Just do them in increasing order. The smallest one is negative 2, followed by negative 1, followed by 3, and then 6. And then do the same thing for your y values. Negative 3, negative 6, negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 2, I'm sorry, 6 is the smallest one. Negative 6, negative 3, negative 2, negative 1. And then use your relations are the ones that go with each other. Negative 2 goes with negative 3. -1 goes with -6, 3 goes with -1, and 6 goes with -2. There's a mapping diagram for the relation. 24 says 4f of x equals 2x plus 7. Find f of -2. So f of -2 equals 2 times -2 plus 7. All you have to do is simplify this. 2 times -2 is -4 plus 7. So f of -2, you don't have to undo that. F of -2 equals -4 plus 7 is going to be +3. 25 says graph this relation. It's in y equals mx plus b form. So begin at y's value or your b value on your y-axis at 2. That's what it tells us. Our b value tells us to begin at 2. Our m value, our m is -3 over 5. Remember, it's rise over run. -3 tells you to go down 3. +5 tells you to go to the right 5. So down 1, 2, 3, into the right 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Down 3 into the right 5 would be there. Your graph would look like that. '26 says to simplify 54 divided by 9. 54 divided by 9 is 6. 27 says to evaluate y equals x plus 3 times x minus 2 when x's value is 4. So y equals 4 plus 3 times 4 minus 2. Do what's inside parentheses. 4 plus 3 is 7 times 4 minus 2 is 2. Y equals 7 times 2 is 14. 28 says name the property. -6 times x plus 2 becomes -6x minus 12 when you multiply that times that. That is the distributive property. And number 29 says to evaluate the expression for the given variable when x is -2. -2 in place of x squared minus 9 times -2 minus 2. Square -2, that means -2 times -2, which is 4. -9 times -2 is plus 18 minus 2. 4 plus 18 we know is 22. That minus 2 is 20.